Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. We got a great friend of the show, David Sirota, on. He's going to weigh in on a new piece about the K-Hive. Can't wait to hear his thoughts on that. Saagar had an exclusive sit-down with Ben Carson. He made some noteworthy comments about evictions and coronavirus. We'll talk about that. We've got a reporter on from Atlanta Journal-Constitution who's going to talk about whether Georgia is truly a battleground and who's got the edge in that state this year in the presidential race. But we wanted to start with some interesting maneuvers from President Trump on healthcare yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. So the president been talking about a healthcare plan for, 3.5 years now. Finally released something a little bit yesterday. Has been drawing quite a bit of criticism in the press and more. Let's take a listen.
The America First healthcare plan includes another historic provision to benefit our great seniors. Under my plan, 33 million Medicare beneficiaries will soon receive a card in the mail containing $200 that they can use to help pay for prescription drugs. Nobody's seen this before. These cards are incredible. The cards will be mailed out in coming weeks. I will always take care of our wonderful senior citizens. Joe Biden won't be doing this.
Unclear, Krystal, if that's actually going to happen. There was some reporting around the cards and the negotiations with the drug companies over whether the drug companies themselves would be sending the cards or the government would be sending the cards.
Don't hold your breath on that one, guys.
It's very complicated. In the words of Donald Trump back in 2017, nobody knew healthcare was so complicated. Still one
Actually,
of my
everybody knew that guy.
Top Trump quotes of all time. But the other thing that was catching a lot of people's attention here is around Trump and pre-existing conditions. Mm-hmm. So basically, the president put out an executive order out yesterday. Let's throw the tweet up there on the screen, basically declaring the official policy of the United States government is that the people with pre-existing conditions should be protected. Now, I think that's a great policy, but part of the issue, though, is that that's not really how law works, is you can't just be like, it's kind of like the Michael Scott thing from The Office where it's like, I declare all pre-existing conditions. Yeah. And I was like, no, actually, like you have to, there's a process, it's called legislation in Congress.
Doesn't really work this way.
It's a bit of a mess. Well, I mean, and healthcare on the Republican side from day one of the Trump presidency has been a total disaster. First, they were going to repeal and replace, and they had all these plans, but then nobody could agree upon a plan. Then John McCain killed the plan. Then they paid the box off. Then they paid the price at the ballot box for trying to repeal Obamacare, but they didn't even repeal Obamacare. And now here we are. They decided to go all the way to the Supreme Court. Still, I think probably the dumbest thing Trump has done while president.
It's definitely up there. It's definitely top 5, I would say, for sure.
Going in trying to kill the ACA at the Supreme Court during the middle of a pandemic, hands down one of the dumbest things a president could have done.
Republicans have never known what to do about health care ever since Obama stole the Republican health care plan. That's true. I mean, that's what he did. He took the Mitt Romney Heritage Foundation health care plan and made it his own, and then they went all in on, like, this is socialism and it's going to destroy America and whatever. And since then, they've never really been able to come up with an alternative. And so you end up with like really stupid situations like this. It's so Trumpian and it's so naked. He even admits, he said something in his speech like, oh, well, the Democrats keep talking about pre-existing conditions, so we've got to do this. You know, it's like he admits that the whole reason he's doing this as some sort of like messaging war with the election coming up. And on the seniors thing, it's also so naked. He sees he's getting his butt kicked with seniors. He's like, all right, let me see if I can send them some money before election day. And the irony here is that Democrats have actually given you an option to send like everybody in the country a check before election day, and you didn't take it. So instead, and let's put the Bloomberg tear sheet up here, actually. So instead, you're going for this like $200 prescription drug card Gambit, which all the reporters who cover healthcare are like, I don't think that you can actually do this. There was apparently some negotiation with pharma to try to get them to send the cards out. They did not agree to that. Again, you'd have to go through Congress. Like, you don't have unilateral spending authority to just like hand out billions of dollars without having some kind of legislative authority to back it up. So like, for example, his executive order that he did on unemployment benefits, there was a pot of money there. It was spelled out. It still ended up being kind of a mess, and some people never ended up getting it, and the funding is now expiring, and that's all over. But at least there was some pot of money that he credibly had some jurisdiction over to direct where it's spent. There's no equivalent thing here whatsoever. So this just seems like blatant, like, oh, healthcare, turns out people care about healthcare in a pandemic. I'm losing with seniors. Let me just say that I'm going to send them some money at some point.
Yeah, so according to Politico and some White House people that they talked to, is that the money could be used as something part of Medicare called a, quote, 402 demonstration, which tests innovations that could save money or improve the quality of care within Medicare. But it's going to cost about $7 billion, $6.6 billion. So that's a lot of money. And like you said, look, Congress appropriates funds, usually line by line. There's actually not a lot of discretionary spending that these people are allowed to do for something like this. So remains unclear whether something like this would happen. I think it just goes to show, like, look, they've been saying over and over again, we're going to have a health care plan. We're going to have a health care plan. They don't have a health care plan. They haven't had a health care plan for 4 years, and they continue to not have a health care plan. There were promises that were made. None of them were actually kept. I think the Republican Party has always been quite content with Obamacare and just never really wanted to admit it for political posturing purposes. But what they were able to harness expertly in 2010 and in 2016 in some respects is people do hate Obamacare. And what they hate there is the costs, right? It's like, objectively, your premiums went up. Obama was like, you can keep all the famous, you can keep your doctor, blah, blah. None of it was true. Everybody's services are down. Everybody's costs are way up. But the problem is, I don't think any of them actually believe in driving costs down, because to do that would actually require some pretty heavy interference into one of the most ridiculous markets in the history of man. And a lot of them are quite content to just be like, you know what, current system's okay, pre-existing conditions, whatever.
Yeah.
But then Trump, part of the thing is he took it seriously and is actually challenging it in the Supreme Court, giving Joe Biden the greatest opportunity of the century. Biden right now hasn't said a word about abortion or anything else. He's like, nope, it's all about the Affordable Care Act before the Supreme Court. That's what's at stake. I think it's politically genius. I mean, pre-existing conditions is what, an 80-20 issue? Maybe 90-10. I can't even.
It's over.
The only 10 are like the drug companies. That's
even them, they're probably like secretly like, it is kind of messed up. And my friend got coronavirus and now they're going to have pre-existing conditions. And that's one of the things here is, look, there are problems with Obamacare, but do people actually want to go back to where if you do have pre-existing conditions, health insurers can just say no to covering you or spike costs insanely up? Do you want to go back to a system where they can put a lifetime cap on so that if you get catastrophically ill, you end up in medical bankruptcy? Like, no one wants to go back to that system either. So, Biden has smartly seized on this, which again is exactly why Trump is doing this. He's smart enough to at least realize, like, oh, this is actually kind of a problem for me in terms of my messaging on ACA. He knew it in 2016. In 2016, in a way, he kind of got to the left of Hillary on healthcare. It was like, we're going to cover everybody. He never specified how. And even as recently as that town hall that he did with George Stephanopoulos, where he was getting pressed on, like, well, what is your healthcare plan? He's like, it's going to be amazing. Yes. It's going to cover everybody. It's going to cover pre-existing conditions. And obviously, like, if this is the plan, it's not even a plan. It's completely pathetic. It's toothless. It's just like a speech, basically, is all it ultimately amounts to here.
They've done some fine things. They've done like surprise medical billing.
Yeah, it was
good. This thing about drug companies and caps and requiring them to put stuff in advertising. Again, I 100% support it. I think it's great. But it's just one of these things where it's been very ad hoc. In terms of transformative stuff, absolutely not. The only way any of this can happen is through legislation. They're not doing it. And like I said, it is handing Joe Biden a gift, right? Like, it's like a gift on a platter. And of course, immediately the Biden campaign pounced with a new ad on the Affordable Care Act. Let's take a listen. Yeah, see? The entire ACA must fall. I would quote it all day long, just like they are doing, because who wants to lose that in the middle of an election? All the polling we've seen here shows it's economy, healthcare, and coronavirus. Top 3 issues, depending on which state that you're looking at. There you go. Well, if this is all you got, it's not going to be enough.
And I do want to say, look, The Dems could end this issue with a one-line amendment attached to the CR.
Yeah.
They could. And yeah, that's exactly it. They don't want to because they know it's a good campaign issue. And that's disgusting too, because that ad is exactly right. Millions of people will lose their health care if Obamacare goes away. You know, the people who benefit from the Medicaid expansion in states that went forward with that will be gone. The subsidies that help people buy this in the marketplace, like all of that will go away. Pre-existing conditions, that protection will go away. Young people being able to stay on their parents' health insurance, all those things will be gone, and it will be a disaster for tens of millions of America. That is all true. The part they don't tell you is they could do something about it. They would just rather keep it as a campaign issue.
There you go. Sums it all up.
There you go. All right. We're going to have more Rising for you after this.